Hey guys, Andy back here from Mediocre Hobbies bringing you the next painting tutorial. Today's video is going to focus on one of the new plastic aspect wires that Games Workshop brought out. The first one we managed to get our hands on was the Howling Banshees. We got them as part of a box set originally against Dark Eldar, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. And now it looks like on the horizon we are finally getting our hands on the rest of those new beautiful plastic Eldar, and I cannot wait to get my hands on them. So in preparation for that, I'm going to start this series of Eldar videos off with the Howling Banshee and work my way through some of the other plastics that we can kind of guess aren't going to change, and try and get the playlist looking nice and healthy for you guys before we get our hands on the new goodies. So stick around till the end of the video to see the result of the Howling Banshee. We used a lot of contrasts, nice quick and easy paint scheme, and you should be able to bash out a full unit of these guys in maybe an hour and a half. So sit back, enjoy. Okay, so we begin this tutorial with a fully sprayed, ready to rock and roll Howling Banshee. The process I went with for the spraying was I gave it an all over coat of Chaos Black. And then instead of using my normal grey sear, I actually went for a Wraith Bone spray. Just gave it a little bit of a warmer tone, which kind of matches the armor on these guys a little bit better. From there, we're going to use contrast skeleton horde, and we're going to give a nice coat of this all over the entire armor of this miniature. So this armor is beautifully ornate and takes contrast so well. I'm imagining that most of the Eldar range are going to be like this. It's going to be very quick and easy to get the infantry for this army painted up if you go the contrast route. As you can see, it just pulls and settles into all those kind of like gemstone motifs and stuff they have around the armor. And it just looks beautiful. So I was super pleased with how the first contrast stage of this miniature turned out. And that made me really excited to start painting the rest. Okay, now after the contrast has dried, this is what you should be left with. For me, there was no pooling, there was no awkward streaks. It just went on perfectly over this armor, gripped it everywhere I needed to grip it, and flowed everywhere I needed to flow. So I was super pleased to move on to the next step and start bringing the color a little bit brighter, a little bit more vibrant. So the paint I chose for this is Morghast Bone, which is one of the new colors out by Games Workshop. And it is a perfect kind of between bone and brown color, like a dark khaki. So it's perfect for the in-between stage. So we're going to dry brush that all over the armor. A heavy enough dry brush. We want to really bring that color out, but leave the skeleton horde contrast in the deep recesses and stuff. So take your time and get the dry brush on the entire model, being careful not to leave any streaks across the big beautiful domed helmet on the miniature. And this is what my model looked like after that dry brush. Super smooth, super nice armor, excuse me. From then we're going to go on to Wraith Bone. And this is going to be a higher dry brush, so it's going to be quite light, but we're going to focus on the big round part of his head, and the kind of like tops of his arms, tops of the chest, tops of the legs. We will dry brush the lower parts a small amount, but it will be mainly a focused dry brush on the top, adding that kind of contrast, that little bit of extra color and light. As you can see, downward motion. I prefer to do kind of 20-30 passes with a brush and get it right. Then, you know, one that's a little bit too heavy and you leave horrible streaks across the bit that it's going to be the focal point. So take your time. And this is as far as I will take the armor. I think a squad of Howling Banshees with armor like this is pretty good. Now it's time just to focus on all the detail parts of the miniature. So we're going to block them in with contrast and metallics first. And then we'll wash them down and layer them up a little bit later. So first things first, the black contrast. And we're going to use this for all of the straps that are surrounding this Howling Banshee model. So the ones holding on her ammo pouch and her pistol holster and stuff like that. We're going to get a very careful coat of the black contrast on those. Once we have those all sorted out, it's time to add the red colors. So it's big, scary mop of hair on the top of this model. I'm kind of like a war crest. So I'm going to go in with Blood Angel's red contrast. I haven't really picked a craft world yet, so all the other colors, the ribbons and the bit of cloth going between the legs, my guess is that's supposed to be painted to match the craft world that you're choosing. Because I haven't chosen a craft world yet, I am now going to use the contrast red, so basically putting them into kind of a Sam Hine color scheme. I may change that later on, but for now, for the purpose of this video, we are going to use the contrast Blood Angels red on all of the ribbons and cloth, as well as the hair on this model. I love it when the colors start to get all broken up and it looks like a model. So moving on to Retributor Armor, we are going to use this for the hilt of the sword, plus any and all gemstones that are on the miniature. I'm going to give them an all over coat of gold, because the gold will be a really nice base coat for doing the gemstones later on. So don't panic if you don't know where to put all the gold. I had to keep referring back to the ones painted on the box, and to know which ones were gemstones and where the gold was supposed to go, and which were just kind of bumps on the armor. So always look it up. Once we have all of the gold blocked in, it is time to add a quick silver layer to the sword. It's pretty much the only part of the miniature that is silver. I've gone for a dark Leadbelcher here to act as the base coat, but after the shade stage, when we layer it up, we'll go nice and bright because it's an Eldar sword, so quite a well made piece of equipment. Okay, I believe that is all of the base coats on. It's time to shade with Seraphim Sepia everything that isn't the bone armor. So we're going to go for all the black parts, all the red parts, all the gold parts, basically every part that isn't the bone armor. We are now going to get a coat of Seraphim Sepia on it. It's okay if it overshoots a little bit, it just adds a little bit of shading. Adds that extra bit of intrigue and detail to the model. As usual, while the shade was drying, I decided to base the miniature to make it seem more finished. I always think this helps with the later part of the paint job, having the model based. It really feels like you're working towards finishing a miniature. So the first thing we're going to do is a quick dry brush with the Mephiston Red across the tops of the hair. We are also going to use Mephiston Red to layer up all of the cloth and ribbons and stuff that we did red earlier on, but we will not be using a dry brush for that. So we're going to switch from a dry brush now to a small layer brush, and from there we are then going to layer up those red ribbons. You try and decide which one was a better angle for the camera so you guys can see what I mean. And just following those high points, add the Mephiston Red. Quick and easy. Model's really starting to come together now. Now we're going to use a bit of Wild Rider Red. We are going to use this as a secondary light dry brush across the hair. Just to add that extra bit of colour. On the box art, the red hair does seem to be pushing more towards the orange tones. So this is a really nice in-between orange and red. So obviously when people are looking at these miniatures on the tabletop, they'll be looking down on them. The big mop of hair will be the first thing that they see. So putting a little bit extra time into that will make all the difference. Moving on to Ironbreaker, we are going to use this to layer up the sword and to add little dot highlights to the gold. So on the gold parts, all you're looking for is all of the little corner pieces or like high rounded pieces. Just add a tiny dots of silver. Just acts like these tiny little highlights. It's so quick and so simple. I'll try and show you on a kind of a better to see or an easier to see part on the hilt of the sword in a moment. Hopefully that'll make you understand exactly what I'm trying to do. My camera once again preferring to focus on my thumb as opposed to the model that I'm trying to paint for you. Okay, so I flipped it over. Let's try and do the silver. See, silver, the gold is quite dull on the hilt. A few dots of silver. All of a sudden it looks like we spent a lot of time highlighting it up when we did not. Some difference. Quick period of time. And then of course getting a nice clean coat of the silver up the sword blade. So I did say gold was the perfect starting point for all of the gems on this miniature. So what we're going to do now is add a Talassar Blue contrast, and we are just going to paint that on top of all of the gemstones. One coat is all I did, and they look fantastic. Obviously, if this is going to be a character model, I do have Jinzar whisking her way over to me in the post, so if I do paint her up, there'll be a little bit more time spent on her gemstones, but basic unit of Banshees or anything else that is a normal infantry squad, I think the gold and one coat of Talassar Blue is more than enough to make them pop on the tabletop. Next is a very tiny coat of Gryph Hound Orange, and we're actually going to use this just to fill in the eye sockets on the helmet. This over the bone really gives you the perfect eye lens color. I was super pleased with this. I didn't want to go red, I didn't want to go blue. These colors already existed on the model and I didn't want a different tone or shade of them, so orange was a nice in between. It's not too far away from brown and it's in the red tone, and it worked out perfectly, so I was super pleased with that. And with that, this is the final result. This is my first fully painted new plastic Howling Banshee. I cannot wait to get the rest of the squad built and painted on a tabletop and in a game. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did think about supporting me and supporting the channel, give the video a like, drop me a subscribe, and if you have any questions about anything we did in this video, put them in the comments below and I will answer each and every one of you. I will see you guys in the next video.